It's not really a secret that Marvel's villain quality is inconsistent. Some may use the excuse that two-dimensional villains are a staple of the superhero genre, but genres evolve. Take fantasy, for instance. Robert E. Howard, author of Conan the Barbarian, is considered to be the father of the fantasy genre. Unless you consider that to be J.R.R. Tolkien, then Howard would be the grandfather of the fantasy genre. Hey Pops. He popularized the sword and sorcery subgenre of fantasy, which has found its place as what is probably the most recognized and iconic fantasy subgenre, with franchises like Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter dominating nerddom for years, alongside their sci-fi counterparts, Star Trek, Star Wars, and all the other stars. Fill in the blank yourself. Like fantasy, the superhero genre can evolve. Why should it matter what others did before, especially if what they did is not up to the standard of current audiences? You can't oversaturate the entertainment industry with fleshed out, well-crafted good characters, whether they be heroes or villains. Good characters are a bit like friends. You can never have too many. Part 1. Way too much math. Now, there are 23 movies and 3 TV shows, if you count Loki, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So let's pick the top 5 villains because I don't really want to evaluate them all. There's, a lot of them. So going to Google, I looked up the top 5 MCU villains. MCU, not Marvel. And wrote down the top 5 from 4 different websites. Then, I did some math and found out who the true top 5 are. From Collider, we have Trevor Slattery, aka the Mandarin, coming in at number 5. Next up is Vulture from Spider-Man Homecoming. The villain in spot 3 is kind of surprising, as I have never even heard of them before researching this video. Thanos. Number 2 is good old Loki, and at number 1 is none other than Eric Killmonger. From SB Nation, the Spidey villains Vulture and Mysterio tie for 5th. Killmonger comes in 4th, and Hela comes in 3rd. Loki takes silver once again, and Thanos takes 1st place. From Business Insider, Red Skull comes in 5th. Vulture just misses the podium with a bitter 4th place. Thanos goes for bronze. Loki collects another silver, and Killmonger takes his 2nd gold. From Time, Hela is our number 5. In 4th, we have a newcomer, Bucky Barnes, aka Winter Soldier. On the podium, we have Killmonger, Loki, and at number 1, Thanos. Wait, what's that on his fist? Wait, no, wait, stop, no! Hey, this is Tired Cass from another universe, or, as they like to call me over there, the Fatigued Writer. So, looking at the old Tired Cass's data. Whoa, I just got British there for a sec, sorry. I think it's safe to say Loki is number 2. The average of Killmonger's scores is 2.25, but with Loki solidly in number 2, and with Thanos' average score being 2, which is slightly better than Killmonger's, Killmonger gets number 4, and Thanos is number 1. Because Vulture occurs in the top 5 more than Hela, he gets number 4, and Hela gets number 5.
Number 5, Hela, Goddess of Death. Number 4, Vulture, not the bird of prey. Number 3, Killmonger, briefly King of Wakanda. Number 2, Loki, God of Mischief. And number 1, Thanos, whoever that is.
I am so sorry. Yes, the first 4 are great villains, both in the MCU and in general cinema. I mean, Loki and Thanos are probably 2 of the best villains of Gen Z, but that's only the top 4. Out of 23 movies. 4 out of 23. That's 17% of their villains. 17% of their villains are great. That's not even a 5th. And I'm doing a lot of math in this video, and now my head hurts. I'm gonna go take an aspirin or jump off a cliff. Part 2. Villains are a dying breed. The most basic step in character creation is deciding whether the character is a protagonist or an antagonist. The protagonist is the main character of a story. They are usually the narrator of a book or the character in the center of a movie poster. You know what I'm talking about. The antagonist is the character in the story that actively opposes the protagonist. The antagonist is usually in the background of the movie poster. So that's the difference between protagonists and antagonists. Now, what are the differences between heroes and villains? A hero is a character who is admired or idealized for courage, outstanding achievements, or noble qualities. A villain is a character whose evil actions or motives are important to the plot. From those definitions, we can see that an antagonist opposes the protagonist, while a villain commits evil acts. A hero can be a protagonist, but a protagonist isn't necessarily a hero. A villain can be an antagonist, but an antagonist isn't necessarily a villain. This is why I prefer the term antagonist over villain. The majority of audiences and readers haven't appreciated an evil villain for a couple decades. When you create characters to be antagonists instead of villains, you give them the chance to be what they truly are, the hero of their own story. So what makes these top 4 villains the best? They aren't villains. They are antagonists. They aren't jammed into a box labeled evil in red paint and set to explode. They are characterized outside of their opposition to the protagonist. Now, I'm not going to talk about Thanos because I'm honestly kind of tired of hearing about him, and I'm not talking about Loki because I'm probably going to do an in-depth video about him and I don't want to get tired of the character. So, Killmonger is the antagonist of Black Panther, and he's incredibly written. He's charming, intelligent, fun, and interesting to watch. He has convincing and sympathetic motivations. His uncle killed his father, and he wants to save oppressed people, and he has a solid plan. He is not characterized as evil at all, but rather a revolutionary who believes what he is doing is right, not just for himself, but for the rest of the world. The only things that make him villainous is the fact he's a bit too eager for violence, he wants to attack other countries, and he's acting against T'Challa, who is our protagonist. So, the Vulture is a victim of greed, but he's not selfishly greedy. Yes, it's his downfall, but he didn't go into the alien weapon trafficking business, which is a sentence I never thought I would say. He didn't go into the business wanting more and more money and being willing to kill anyone who gets in his way. He goes into it wanting to provide for his family and his workers after the government took the job of cleaning up the alien scraps away from them. He does not want to kill Peter Parker, but he is willing to because his family's livelihood is threatened, and he will do anything for his family. So he is greedy, but he's not selfishly greedy. He approaches things from a more understandable viewpoint, not a necessarily villainous one. So then why is Hela not up to par? Well, she doesn't really get much development beyond, my daddy was mean to me and now I want to rule because power. Her design is fantastic and her personality is charming and fun to watch. Unfortunately, I think she falls into the entertaining but uninteresting category. And there's a very specific reason for that. She is a villain. Her evil actions drive the plot. Yes, she is the antagonist to Thor's protagonist. Like I said before, villains are antagonists by nature if they are not the main character. But Hela doesn't have enough characterization to be considered more than a villain. She has been placed in that box labeled evil, and when she exploded, she took Asgard with her. Villains are a dying breed, giving way to the rise of the antagonists. I say let them die, but the villains are not giving up without a fight. Part 3. There are no stories without villains. Another poorly kept Marvel secret is the inconsistent quality of their movies. This is my personal tier. Barely entertaining. Captain Marvel. Yeah, this was fine, I guess. Thor, Dark World. Yeah, this was pretty good. Iron Man 2. Incredible Hulk. Thor. Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Avengers Ultron. Doctor Strange. Ant-Man and the Wasp. Wow, I want to watch that again. Captain America, First Avenger. The Avengers. Iron Man 3. Captain America, Winter Soldier. Guardians of the Galaxy. Ant-Man. Civil War. Homecoming. Black Panther, Avengers Infinity War, Spider-Man Far From Home. Rewatch 4 times a month. Thor Ragnarok. History making. Iron Man, Avengers, Endgame. Now as you can see, I do think most of them are pretty good, bordering on great. But many of those pretty good movies, even the bad ones, would be elevated to another level if their villains were better. Like, seriously, Whiplash sucked. He had so much potential and a lot of good lines, and that whole make God bleed thing was so good, but so wasted on that character. Like, I'm so mad about that. But I'm getting sidetracked. I find that many Marvel fans have the same issue. They can't remember the antagonist's name. I have literally no clue what the evil sorcerer's name from Doctor Strange was. I think it starts with a K, and I had to look up who Jude Law played in Captain Marvel. This alien dude named Yon-Rogg. Now, like Captain Marvel, Yon-Rogg was a huge missed opportunity. He could have been a very skilled manipulator, or maybe he could have been under the manipulation of the Supreme Intelligence itself, learning that he was being brainwashed just like Carol, and they take down the Supreme Intelligence together. Now that would be like a twist, almost anti-hero sort of story, because you think he's the villain, but he's actually not. But no! He was boring! Like this movie. The antagonist of any story matters, maybe even more than the protagonist. Without the antagonist, there is no reason to root for the protagonist. In fact, without the antagonist, there is no reason to even have a protagonist, because there is no story without an antagonist. I am saying antagonist a lot, I apologize. Conflict drives stories. Whether that conflict be man versus nature, man versus self, man versus man, etc., there is always a conflict. That says a lot about humanity, doesn't it? And everyone can probably think of a movie that a bad antagonist has ruined. Thor: The Dark World had a few issues, namely mind-numbingly slow pacing. But the major one was the antagonist Malekith, who was just your everyday, I want to cause eternal darkness villain. Iron Man 3 also suffered because of the Mandarin plot twist that no one saw coming and no one liked. I mean, I think we all knew Killian was a bad guy, but maybe a secondary bad guy, like the 10 rings in Iron Man being secondary to Obadiah Stane. I actually really like Iron Man 3, but the Mandarin, who I had high hopes for because I watched Iron Man Armored Avengers and I thought Khan was a good antagonist. Though keep in mind I was a kid, so I don't actually remember much, and thus cannot say if I still think that. But the Mandarin being reduced to a high actor and an evil businessman was just annoying and honestly derivative. Safe to say it wasn't a good plot twist. But we can see that bad antagonists make for bad stories. I mean, I know it's not that black and white, but saying it makes for bad stories sounds better than not so good stories. So, I said bad stories. I think one of the biggest causes of this is writers spending too much time and effort on the protagonist. Writers, you cannot forget about your antagonist. They are the whole reason for the story. And honestly, way more fun to write, at least in my opinion. Conclusion. I realize this may be obvious to a lot of you, but that's sort of my point. Writing good antagonists instead of two-dimensional villains is something nearly every writer knows and nearly every audience prefers. Yet, Marvel continues to mess this up. And I can't bring myself to believe that they don't care, because Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige seems to really care about this universe, saying in an interview with Variety in 2021, "We only want to keep doing this so that we can keep evolving it and changing it and growing it and doing things we hadn't done before." Someone who didn't care wouldn't want to evolve and grow the franchise. I don't know, maybe they just don't have time to flesh the antagonists out because they put out so many movies, so they have to focus on their heroes. I honestly don't know, but whatever the reason is, it's a really simple fix. Just put the time and effort in. Creating three-dimensional characters really isn't that hard. Just, look up character creation tips on Google. You can't oversaturate the entertainment industry with fleshed out, well-crafted, good characters, whether they be protagonists or antagonists. We have seen how iconic Marvel's best villains have become, with Loki and Thanos having their own thrones in the kingdom of pop culture, which is the only throne Loki is ever gonna get. We need to let the villains die and let the antagonists thrive. God versus Satan has been told before. It's time to start a new narrative. Marvel, please stop writing villains. Thanks! Sincerely, a YouTuber with a billionth of your net worth. I appreciated this, but I need to go back to my universe now. I think Tired Cass is coming back. Oh, look, that's her. Oh, she looks, different. Hi, I just, came back from the oblivious void between the fabric of two realities and now aware that I am merely a figment of my creator's imagination. I am having an existential crisis, so, I'll be quick. Thanks for watching and happy Friday!